You always start by disconnecting the negative battery terminal. And then you start taking things out of the way. Start removing things. A lot of these old vacuum lines get really tight on there just over time. Much of this we'll just replace as part of the service. We're going to go ahead and remove the intercooler. Now for the fun part, we're going to start pulling out the inlet tube. A lot of these are non-reusable clamps from the factory, so you have to kind of break them off. They come off pretty easy. As I say that, I struggle with it, of course. PCV line, just kind of move it out of the way for now. We'll get back to that later. This is the PCV leak detection sensor, even though there's no sensor in it, but it thinks it's a leak detection sensor. Little screwdriver action. Just got to separate it from its post. Comes out. Little trick, once you take this out, inside here is a pin. Take a pair of pliers. Got to grip kind of hard. A little harder than I'm gripping. These pliers aren't going to cut it. Take a pair of pliers inside. You're going to pull out this little guy right here. Take that, find the plug, snap the plug off of the connector there, and you take this pin and you put it inside there, and you will no longer have a check engine light because that won't get reused on the install. I like to kind of tuck it out of the way. You can wrap it up in electrical tape if you so desire. If you want to do it super clean, you can cut it apart, solder it. Just solder the two wires together. It's not a resistor, it's just a jumper. Now we're going to remove the clamp off of the turbo inlet, and if you zoom in on this, I don't know if you can see it or not, it's actually pinched right here, and you can actually see it split. Let me grab a pick. You can actually see it separated underneath the clamp there. And that's where it's leaking from, is all around there. So it's pretty well trashed. This is really common. You see this a lot, especially if the turbo has been on or off the car in the past. Even if it hasn't, they still sometimes look like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to twist it to the side like that. And then you're going to, basically you can pull it down from there. And it's out. All right, now when taking this inlet tube out, the easiest way to get it out is kind of barbaric, but it's to just break everything off. Since the inlet tube is trashed anyway, I usually just start grabbing with a pair of pliers and just start twisting until stuff just comes apart, and it usually shreds pretty easy. And that makes it way easier. And you can see they pull off like right at the base, and it makes it considerably easier to deal with here in a second when we start actually getting into removing the tube. If you're doing this on an STI with a red manifold, I recommend putting something on the manifold to prevent any little scratches that might happen right here. But basically, you just got to pry that off. It's not easy, but it does come off. Since that big boy didn't want to just break off like usual, we're going to cut it off. Now, I'm just going to get this little piece of harness up above the split here. And then the whole inlet tube just comes right out. Just like that. And this is what we were talking about earlier. These are the tears down in here that you see. You can see my finger through all of that. This is a factory clamp. This isn't like something that somebody else put on there. This is what Subaru shipped, and it just chews up and destroys this factory inlet tube. Now for the install, remove all of the fittings from it, and it'll make life a lot easier. You'll have to leave this one in, or else there's no way to get it in there. A little trick that I use, I take it out and I trim this down about 1/2 inch, which then puts that a little further in and makes it easier to install. There are lots of methods for trimming these. I prefer the long razor blade. Careful about with your fingers. Clear yourself a spot. Then basically kind of measure in how far you want to go. You need to have enough room for a clamp. You want to make sure that a clamp is going to fit on there properly with a little bit of extra, so right about there is where we can go to. Put this in as far as you can. You can feel it being flush on the inside. You're not going to be able to clamp it, but you just want to get it on there. Now for the shoving and the pushing. I always replace the turbo snout clamp with just a new one. Bigger is easier to work with, and they clamp down really well. So it's a low pressure, so you don't have to worry so much about how much clamping force, but you do need to get something to hold it on the inlet tube. So you're not going to want to put it on now, but you're going to want to set it over by the turbo so that when you get down there, you know where it's at. You can get it in there. So now, this is the difficult part. Difficult, not impossible. Getting everything to go underneath all these hoses and lines. These inlet tubes are stiff for a reason, just to help them hold up, but it does make them difficult to work with. You want to kind of twist it as you go in. You're going to start fighting this nipple here. That's fine. You're just going to have to kind of work at it until it pops under, and then pull up from the bottom at the same time with your finger from this side. As you can see it's slowly working its way in. Just gotta kind of massage it. Push, little shove. Now, if you can see over here, we're getting to where the snout of the turbo inlet is at the snout of the turbo. Pretty close at least, which is a good thing. We're real close to being where we want to be. Now is when you're going to want to get your clamp at least down in its place. You have to pull back on it just a little bit to get this guy in. That's fine. A little too far. Hook tools are very useful in what we're doing here to help you go fishing. Alright, we're up over the turbo snout now. So now we're going to get this back into position. Alright, so we're at the turbo. You can see it never lines up quite right. That's normal. It's because you're making quite a jog to this direction. So what we have to do is use our hook tool. First I'm going to try to pull the clamp over the inlet just so it's not sitting there, so it's sitting on the inlet. So now the clamp is just kind of hanging on the inlet, which is cool. You can push it up out of the way. This part, I'm going to go ahead and move this this wastegate line so it's just out of my way. Just a pinch clamp. Probably need a pair of pliers though. I recommend if you have some vacuum line to replace these because they do get kind of nasty over time. Especially as you can see it kind of glued itself on there. So now we got to use our hook tool to massage turbo inlet over the snout of the turbo. And you'll see you just kind of work your way around it. Be really careful not to poke a hole in it, because then your turbo inlet is just as good as your old one. As you massage it, give it a little bit more pressure. And eventually what will happen is it'll just kind of pop on. Alright, I got it pretty well over there. So I'm going to get a long screwdriver and stick it straight down this one of the nipples here. Then you can use it to get a lot of torque on it like that. Just kind of torque it up over the snout. Get another little push from up front. And if you look, we are pretty much there. And if I made that look easy, which it's not, but when you do it, you'll see what I mean. I've done 100 of them, so kind of know the way to push it. Now we're going to line it up, tighten it down. There's no boost applied there, just air suction. So just enough to not come off. This is a part that a lot of people dread when it comes to turbo inlets, and that's the recirculation tube. It's because it doesn't really fit well, especially with the drive-by-wire cars. So I'm going to unplug the throttle body here. Careful not to break any clips. They're very expensive if you need to replace them. So I'm going to move my clamp so that the ears are up top so I can get to them. And then I'm going to push this down. The idea is you got to get it over the end of that recirc hose there. It's really difficult because it sits right up against that PCV hardline. It's down there. So again, use my hook tool. It's a very important tool. And just kind of use it to position the hose kind of where you need it. You're going to need to push that underneath the throttle body there, which is its native home. This is why I trimmed it shorter, because as you can see, it's just kind of, everything is in its way. So if you can work it to the bottom and then get your hook tool to bring it around the top and the side, it just kind of goes in. Put clamps on everything. Don't trust that anything won't leak without a clamp. It might seal up at first, but over time it will leak. Trick to making these not kink. A lot of people say that you'll always kink this hose if you use a straight piece of hose. Use a hose that already has a little bit of natural curve, but don't cut it too long. If I tried to run that on there, it would kink. So I'm going to cut about another 1.5 inches off of that. My handy dandy hose cutters. And then put your clamp on there before you put the hose on. That's a trade secret. You put that on there, as you can see, there's not all that much bend to it, and so it's not going to kink. The less bend you have, the less its potential to kink. Alright, so we're basically done with our turbo inlet stall up to about here. Everything back there is done. We can put the top mount back on right now if we wanted to, which we will. So let's do that. The tricky part with these 0607 WRX intercoolers is just that this is a hard plastic elbow, so you have to get it perfectly lined up with the turbo snout. Once you do, you just kind of give it a little bit of pressure, and hopefully it'll decide it likes you, and it'll just slide right on. There it goes. That's the secret. Everyone asks because they are a pain. But it's all about just getting the exact right amount of pressure and the right angle. Again, hook tool for this coupler helps a ton. You just got to kind of start it, and then again it just kind of pops right on, and you're in. Reconnect everything. Back on. Yeah. That's good. What? Here. I kind of lost this one. There it goes. These do need to be tight. I still like these clamps because they're constant tension. I don't like T-bolts, they're too wide. They cause uneven distribution of force. Some people swear by them, but this won't leak like that. So once you know that they're all going in, you don't have to worry about cross-threading, especially on some of these rustier bolts. You could replace this hardware if you're on a budget or you don't have access to hardware. It's all reusable still. It's not so rusted to where it's going to break, but you just want to make absolutely sure you're not cross-threading or else it will break. Tighten the top one, then the bottom ones on this side. You can see when you hit the bottom ones, the whole intercooler kind of moves up into position. On the blow-off valve, I don't ever hit these with the electric or air or impact or anything. This model, they're not so bad, but the earlier aluminum styles in the STI, if you hit that too hard, it'll strip them right out. Now we start moving to the various fittings and whatnot on the front of the car. This guy, straight piece, gets his little piece like that. It's going to sit at kind of an angle, that's fine. This one gets an elbow. I put clamps on those usually as well. Again, they're low pressure, but if they leak, they cause problems.